Hey, Station. Thanks for showing up today.
Hey, hi, Tim.
I'm gonna
Tim,
yeah, go ahead.
Tim, yeah, owing to this DST change, right? I have a conflicting meeting because India doesn't follow DST, and all my calendar has actually moved 1 hour ahead. So I request to place my thing a little ahead. I'll have to drop a little early. Okay.
Yeah. You guys are gonna be first in, so I'll put you
Yeah.
first before
Sure.
Sagar. That's no
And
issue.
I'll be dropping
And,
early
and
because I have to go for the meeting.
yeah, and what we're gonna want to know, Seishu, I think the team is that, particularly, talk about what you're going to be doing in OSC and the tasks that are there, and your
Yeah.
expected
Yeah.
timeframes. But more importantly, also within the Nepio, what tasks you're going to identify within Nepio for these particular things,
Yes.
so that they can
We are
know
ready with
exactly
that.
from their
We are
end.
ready with that.
Okay.
We are ready with that. I mean, once Sagar pitches in, then I'll be able to share my screen. I'm just logged in from my
Yep.
mobile.
Yep. I'm just giving you some expectations of maybe what the team will
Yeah.
want
Sure.
to.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, guys. So it's 10 o'clock. We're going to give everyone about 2 minutes, and then we'll get started. So.
Hey guys, good morning everyone, or good evening everyone, wherever you're coming from.
Good evening, Sashu.
Hey Vishwa. Alexi, good to see you, buddy, after your long weekend, long holiday actually.
Hey everyone. Hey Sisha.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so I see people starting to come in. So let's just get started. So this is the March 20th meeting of the ORAN integration. What we have on today's agenda is approval of previous minutes. We've got some discussion. I just want to pass on some information about the ARC scoping results. And then we're going to have an activity where we're going to discuss some of the design and implementation tasks. I asked Sagar and Seishu to give us an update of how that's going to work with OSC and how that's going to work with the network automation team. So we'll do that. That'll be in the first 15 minutes, guys. And then we're going to discuss some of the network automation components for the particular user stories around the crate cluster specifically, right? So we were asked to do some additional design. Does anyone have any additional agenda items for today? Okay. So let's just get started. March 13th, we've got the meeting minutes here. Does anyone have anything, any objection to approving these minutes? All right, I don't see any objection. I'm going to mark them as approved. Okay. And then we did last week, if you remember, we went through and we announced to the group the RX scoping results. We had that scope and review on Friday. They agreed that that is a complete enough use case to go forward with their scoping work, but they asked for some additional design time to work out some of the aspects of the use case still, and they asked if the ORAN community could host that, and so we're going to do that later on. We're going to continue on with that design piece. But before that, what I wanted to do was let you know a couple things, and we'll get into some tasks. We had some action items that Seishu was able to come back and give us about. We wanted to check on the work and OSC on the O1 interface to find out what's available, because if you remember, we have an activity that comes in after these use cases that talks about how we want to utilize O1. And so he let us know what's available in OSC, like the fault management is available, CM is available, and then there's an
PM
OAM
is in
controller there. CM
Yeah,
is
also
in
PM.
progress?
No,
Oh,
PM,
PM is in-
performance. Yeah.
Okay. In
PM also is
progress.
available, but I will say in progress because there is still a discussion on the spec itself, right? So that is work in progress, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And so there's a controller there that you can use that's a netconf client that's based upon Open Daylight that that can produce that O1 interface. Anyway, so that's what's there. So we also then had an action item from Ravi and Stefan to reach out to Seishu to work on the API for the MBI and the FOCOM. I don't know if you guys were able to do that, but since all three of you are on there, I'd just like to get verification if you've had that conversation.
Yeah.
No, not
Yeah,
yet. We have no. We need to take that one. So
Okay, so the three of you are on today. Could you meet and work out your FOCOM MBA?
Sure. We'll work on it. I mean, again, sorry guys, there's been change in DST, so because of which a lot of my schedule has been rescheduled.
Yeah,
I'm-
hopefully that ends this week. So we should be back to normal stuff right next week.
Yeah, because
Although
all
you
my
guys
calendars-
don't do.
Yeah, we don't.
everything.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, you guys are hosts because it's going to be later for you. Right.
No, it's early actually. It's early for me
Oh,
because
early? Okay.
yeah, because of summer it will be early and winter it will be late.
Okay.
So
yeah.
because it's early, I have all my other meetings also coming in conflict. So that's the issue. Anyways,
but-
me and Ravi are in touch, and Stephen, we will also get you onto that, and we'll discuss.
Yeah,
on how
there's
Yeah, please do
specific
that.
ones
That's good.
they need to see that API, right? So they're going to need
Yeah.
that as part of their design safety.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So
By the way, in short, what I can say is this, especially this NBA is what we discussed before also. We will not be standardizing it as such. We'll only give it as part of Postman right now to initiate it. We are waiting for the actual ORAN spec to come off from SO, right? That's the thing which we will be binding into in the long run. Currently, this is actually stopgap solution. The whatever we are going both for NFO as well as for FOCOM will be stopgap solution. So that's
that's going to be that's going to be in 2025 or 2026.
Yes.
You know,
because that
so
has to go a
it's
long
way
way
out
from
there.
work group 1 to work group 6 and further to us, right? So that'll take time. Meanwhile, whatever we're going to do is a stopgap solution. Yeah, that I think we all agree upon, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So the next set of things is talk about some design and implementation tasks. So again, you know, we've got work guys that are, as you well know, that it's being done by OAI in OAI. We've got work that's being done by OSC in OSC. But then there's also work that's got companion pieces that are needed on for each of these use cases. That for work that's being that is happening in Nepio. So the network automation we need to be able to define within the Nepio community, because I expect, and we're not managing that. I expect OSC and OAI has their way of doing their tasking. We're not really talking about those boards, but certainly within the Nepio boards, there's got to be some paths that need to be identified and worked through for each of the epics that we want to set up. So what I did is I asked Seishu and Sagar to give us a little bit of update on that and what they plan on identifying within the Nepio community. And we're going to start with Seishu. I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes each.
Sure. So I will share the screen. So what we did is we actually created sort of a checklist here. The same thing.
Hey, Seishu, hang on. You're sharing?
Yeah, Sagar is going to share. Sagar, you will be sharing the screen.
Oh, Sagar, can you share?
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah, I see him. Sorry, guys, I'm in a hurry because I have to jump to the other meeting. It's actually my other supporting meeting which I cannot skip. So the thing is, actually, what we did is we created a dashboard, sort of checklist story inside Nepio, which is gonna also talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see now. Right.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll actually have all the tasks listed here. We have all the tasks listed here. And as and when we complete in the OSC part of it, we'll be also noting it down here. By the way, this task is something which we already approved, maybe all agreed upon, we reviewed and we approved it as part of our initial discussions during Jan and December months. So that's the same is actually what we have listed here. And whenever we complete, it's visible for everyone, right? That way we'll also know what is happening in the OSC side. And also what is that Nepio is going to do integration with. So that's how we have decided it. And thanks, Sagar, for putting it together and sharing the screen right now. As you see, this is the current screen where we are displaying everything. There are some prerequisite part which we're working on. The biggest crunch right now, I mean, we have created stories for this and the implementation started in silos. One of the biggest crunches which we have is the resource crunch. I mean, we don't have any environment where we can test it end to end right now. So I have raised this point in the OSC meeting last week, and we got one environment which is coming from Taiwan University lab. The other OSC labs are all down right now. So this is actually like a contingency plan. We are using the Taiwan lab right now and moving ahead with that. We just got it yesterday, in fact, is when we got the VPN access and all. So we are trying to get that thing as a contingency. That's a contingency plan, but as part of the actual mitigation, we have two more things going in parallel. One wherein the OI has actually procured the new hardware, which was actually planned. It got delayed because of the MWC in between. So Sagar is working on it. We are expecting 2 servers to be brought into OI lab by April month. So once we have them ready, we'll be able to test it end to end. By end to end, we mean both the integration with the OSC as well as integration with NFO is what we are targeting in that. Meanwhile, we are actually looking at other possibilities. I'm also in discussion with the TOF meeting or with the TOF members. So we are also expecting 2 more labs which are getting set up as we speak. If we get any chance in that, we'll also try to put it there. So that's a risk right now for the entire process to go ahead with. So we are looking at all the.
So this is the AT&T lab, right? That you're talking about.
Yes,
Did
yes,
they ever
yes.
put that in place?
Yeah, that's East West Coast. Apart from AT&T lab, we have 2 more labs. One is in Taiwan, where we got 1 server, but 1 server will not be sufficing the entire requirement. So we are trying to even have more added to that. Tim, you're right. The AT&T lab is the East Coast lab, right? That's what you're referring, isn't it? For the OSC. Yeah, that's going to be brought up because there's a shift of the servers. Actually, it's going into the university. You know the story. I'll not go into that. So there are 2, one in East Coast, other in West Coast, one in Taiwan, one in China is what we are trying to do right now. And also we are also checking with the Otis lab, which is coming out. Also enter into Otis lab. Apart from that, our friends from Capgemini are also building a lab within their premises to ensure that we can at least port. I mean, the connectivity of it is something which we have to check for the logistics and all. But right now we are also trying to set up one lab, one setup of this inside their premises. So once that is up, we'll also be able to take it on and do it. So we are trying all the possibilities for us to have a lab. The best part of it would be OI lab. Once we have that, then it'll be like the charm of it will be end to end. We can actually test the entire pieces of the puzzle here. Meanwhile, we are trying to do it in silos. So
okay,
yeah,
let me just get through on this piece. So on the user story for the NF orchestration, we're targeting Nepio release, and we're saying Nepio release 3. Currently, that's like June timeframe, into June. That's is that still on board with you guys, or are you
that's still on board? That is still on board because we have not much change in NFO side, right? Last time we discussed about this. The major changes on the OSC side, we are doing integration work with the NFO.
Okay, all right. I just want to make. I just want to get a validation. So Sagar, there's the other user story that dealt with the near real-time RIC. Is that available as well?
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think Naman would be here too, right? So Naman is working on that. I can just put on that. Actually,
yeah, right, Sagar. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, hi Tim. Yeah.
Sorry, Naman, just sorry to interrupt. Tim, can I drop? And Shivan and Ravi will actually catch up offline.
Yeah, that's
Shivan
fine.
and Ravi will catch up offline for the other part, okay? For the NBA part.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Hang on, before you drop,
Yeah.
Stacey, just a second. I just want to ask, does anyone else have any questions for Stacey at this time?
Please.
Okay. Thank you, Stacey.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Right. I'll see you soon. Bye.
All right. So deploying that near real-time RIC. So this is the other aspect of it over here. So we've got them created. We're still working on the same timeline. No issues for June if we need it.
Yeah. So hi Tim. So I'll be working on this, deploying near RTRIC. So like the timeline looks good. So like we already discussed, there is no change on nephew side. It's just creating the controller, and also the like nephew NF deployment CR and config CR. So yeah, it should be fine.
Okay, Cool.
Yeah.
So, Sagar, on the OEI side, what do you got? I just want to make sure you guys got the stuff across. So.
So yeah. So on OAI side, the other user story is this one, reconfigure NF. No,
Down.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
The fourth one, yeah.
Yeah. So in this user story also, so what I'm doing right now, I'm just testing a couple of things on the OAI side itself. For example, when we reconfigure the bandwidth, when we go from, let's say, 20 megahertz to 40 megahertz, I'm doing it multiple times in a simulated environment, the same environment which we're going to use in Nefio. It's the same one which we used in R2, let's say. So I just want to make sure that everything is fine on our side so that we can start testing from via Nefio directly. So I created the pointers here, the changes which are supposed to be done. And the timeline still is R3. Because here again, there is no changes in Nefio. It's the changes are only inside the operator which is developed in Nefio, or the OEI RAN operator, which is developed in the Nefio project itself. There will be certain changes in that, and then I have to add in the doc, in the R3 document, that how to retrigger the bandwidth and how to do some changes. It's something similar to what was done, let's say, for FreeFire GC. So I'm gonna add those steps also in the document, and then I think it's all good.
All right, good. So we're still in line with June. Is there any others that are coming from the OEI for release 3 that you got concerned about? I think that's everything, right? I just want to make sure.
You can
So, yeah.
this one.
The
This
XApp,
one, yeah, the XApp one. So yeah, it's similar to deploying Rick. So we have all these tasks. So this is high level task as of now. So once I'll start working on it, I'll add more details like which XApp I'll be using for the demonstration and all that details.
All right, cool. So it sounds like the 4 use cases that we have today, right? I think it's 4. Yeah, 4 use cases we have today. We're okay with the July timeframe if Nefio so chooses. We have the tasks in the Nefio issue trackers, and we're tracking to those. Did I get any of that wrong?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I would just like to add something, if you don't mind, is that for this XApp story, I would not promise today itself that it will be released. It will be done in R3, because there have to be certain things I have to check from OEI side also, depending on the XApp which we'll use, that it will work perfectly, when people try to reproduce everything. So, but most probably it will be in R3, let's say. Okay, we'll try our best to just push this also in R3, because again, this will have no impact on Nefio itself. We're not going to change anything in Nefio. So this is the only thing I want to just mention here. I'll still
so
keep
you're
them
saying
up.
it's got some OAI issues that might have OAI issues that could cause
exactly because it
and testing to be
absolutely
later than R3.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to be sure that the XApp we choose, it works end to end every time. It's reproducible, so that everybody can reproduce by themselves and they don't have issues. So first I have to figure that out.
Yeah, I suspect that's going to be April or May before you'll know that, right?
Exactly, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, that's
yeah. I have one question. Are we deploying ORAN SC rig or OAI rig?
ORAN SC rig.
Okay, still OAI. You're talking about OAI rig, am I right?
No, the user story was designed to use only OSC rig, let's say.
Okay, then what's the issue with XApp over OAI which you are talking about?
Because it also have to see that our E2 agent on the RAN side can provide those information, you see, because there are certain service models also which ORAN provides. So depending on the kind of service models we support on our side and the ones which are there in, let's say, in the I release of OSC, and the information can be exposed, we need to find a common path.
Great. So we are integrating OAI CUDUs with ORAN SC rig. Yeah, sure.
It's a lovely E2. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else on these two? Any other questions for Sagar? All right. I don't hear any more questions. So let's get to the next item, which is, thank you, Sagar, by the way.
Just a quick
let's-
question.
Yeah, sure.
This is Vish here. So some of the dependencies that you're mentioning, Sagar, is a plan to be captured in those user stories, like, and risks and all those stuff, dependencies and risks? I mean, the question for both Tim and Sagar.
It would be captured in the XF user story if we're going to capture it with Fish. I don't know what network automation does about these, like testing, constraints, right? I mean, I captured it in the meeting. So, Sagar, what do they do in network automation for these type of risk captures?
So the thing is, this is something new which we're gonna introduce in starting R3, So these kind of things were not done before. So let's say if you talk about only one user story of, let's say, reconfigure NF, it's something similar to FreeFileGC R1. So for that, Victor created some test scenarios so that we test all the time end to end. So we will do something similar for all the them.
Yeah, let's do that in that XF use case, just to verify a task that validates the E2, right? That's what we're talking about.
It's gonna be in all the user stories. Like whatever user story we do, we to say that the user story is finished. I propose that we should also create a test, because the people who create the user story, they know much more and they can also create a test. Because if we don't test it all the time, then we don't know it's gonna work, right? So we also have to create a test, whether it's a unit test or an end-to-end test.
No. I missed it, right? So what you said was that you have to validate that what the information elements that you pass from OAI to the XF are consistent. So that's a design task. So you're going to look to see I suspect that you're going to look at the information elements that's going to go between them to see if there's going to be any problems. So it's a design task, right? It's not a test. You're checking to make sure the information elements received and that you have the right information elements being exchanged, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's a design task in the so again, that's a task that probably should go into the use case for the XF.
Okay,
just to verify. That's what I meant by verify. Okay. Yeah. Did that answer your question, Vic?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if we are saying that something is going in R3, and which Sagar rightly mentioned that, hey, wait, there's a dependency on OAI, that gets captured appropriately so that, folks know that it may or may not make R3 depending on the availability. And it seems like some of the things you're discussing will help manage that.
Yep. Okay, cool. All right, any other questions for Sagar?
One more, Tim. On the same lines to Sagar and even to Naman. As a workaround, anyway, we are going to test all. That is our, I put it in chat also. See here, it looks like ORAN SIG had to be integrated into OAI CUDU, and then it all are getting deployed in Nephew. So double integration. I'm just asking Naman or whoever who knows, can we have some XAP testing which just requires a RIC dependency, so just to as a mitigation?
So basic testing can be like it's receiving all the policies that it has subscribed to without E2, involving E2 node or CUD. So that can be done. Like XApp can be able to interact with all the services inside the RIG platform, which is actually done by RMR in the RIG. So if that works, so that can be one of the initial test cases that we can have. Second step is obviously connecting with CUDU, so that E2 is also tested. So yeah, these two steps can be the tests for testing the XApps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So what I'd like to do is move on to the crate cluster because I promised them 40 minutes, and so unless there's any other pressing question. I'm hearing none. So Stefan, you want to take it from here and finish up your design pieces for the crate cluster?
So to be honest, I have not prepared anything more for today. I wasn't sure what was expected here as the next step to actually.
All right, so bring it up and we'll go through. We'll see, because we got some time, right?
Okay, I will bring it up and we can discuss. We can go through it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That way we can make sure.
Okay. Yeah. Just a moment.
Hey, Alexis, do you remember what the big issue was that they were trying to solve on the ARC scoping from that discussion?
I think it's really more the lower level design, right? On how we design the CRD, what CRD we should use, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's where most of the discussion happened.
Right. So we're in the CRD design, Stefan. So.
Well, it's yes and no. There is also a discussion. We had also a discussion about the fact that it shouldn't be a one-to-one mapping to CAPI in itself, right? It should be something that is more generic. So it shouldn't be called, for instance, a CAPI provider as suggested in the initial proposal. It should be more generic, maybe a Kubernetes provider, and then people can use CAPI. Google can use whatever they have, Red Hat can use whatever they have, and so on and so forth. So we don't force it on CAPI, because ultimately Nephew doesn't really care, because the package will have all the KRM needed to do the deployment on that IMS. So yeah, sorry, I'm going to stop here. Stefan, if you want to get back to it.
The question is what, and it depends on if that is what we are discussing today now. Then we suggested copy here in this user story in order to have some flexibility in terms of whatever we are implementing here as a, we can say, reconciler then towards the O2IMS interface. Yeah, it needs to, for sure, needs to support like a well-defined IMS implementation. Also, again, then exposing the O2IMS interface according to some ORAN standard. But we could also expect, when we now start to actually use this, that there can be some flavors of this, right? That we are not really sure that everyone, like if you say another OCloud, not necessarily based on Nephew, are strictly following that O2IMS implementation. So that will give us some possibilities to do adaptation here. So I was thinking about that then afterward. Now, if we are saying we don't want to use copy here, what do you think we should use instead?
I think here what we're going to...
suggestions?
Yeah, absolutely. The intent, and that's what we're discussing last Friday, is to use packages, right? So of course, the API that is going to be provided by O2IMS is going to be standardized, right? So this is what we're working on. Hopefully that API will look like the cluster template, right, ultimately. And from SMO to, from FOCOM to IMS, the intention will be to maybe, through that cluster template, supply what we were discussing as maybe being a package identifier. So from FOCOM to IMS, there is really no understanding of how the cluster should be created. Ergo, we shouldn't care CAPI, because FOCOM doesn't need to know it's CAPI that will implement the cluster. FOCOM just needs to know that that cluster template identified by that package ID is what I want that OCloud to implement. Now the OCloud does it the way it wants, right? I think that's the intention. So
Yes,
it's fully agnostic from a folk.
Okay, sorry. Yes, so I am interrupting you, but yes, I fully agree on that. But still, you need to implement a client side to that O2IMS API, right? So what will be? Will it be just a standalone O2IMS operator that we are implementing, and that can interpret like an O2IMS specific custom resource, or what would be the implementation of the client side?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the specification of ORAN, ultimately it will be that cluster template API. Now it's not there today. So what we were suggesting, at least Wim was suggesting, the following is that we create a new API that we call a cluster claim. Okay, similar to the workload cluster. The workload cluster is more the actual. The cluster claim is FOCOM sending that cluster claim through that O2IMS. We just picture it for a second, and then any IMS is receiving that cluster claim. The cluster claim is the standard API. We call it cluster template, we call it cluster claim. It doesn't really matter. But so then FOCOM has a client to communicate through IMS using that specific API that we standard, that ORAN is looking at standardizing, but we're a little bit ahead, right? So exactly that claim, exactly, this is exactly what Wim was suggesting. And that way, and the template ref, exactly, that's the package version ref, exactly this. And so that's what SMO only need to send over O2, right? So you have a client that talks REST or that talks Kubernetes, because anyway, CRD would be a REST endpoint. So it doesn't really matter, one or the other. Through that client, FOCOM sends that CR instance that is a claim, a cluster claim, that reference to a specific package revision. And when the IMS receives it, well, the package revision is something that it knows already. It's because SMO is aware of that package template or cluster template ref only because that IMS is exposing it, or because it has been loaded. I mean, that we haven't defined that yet in ORAN, but that's something we could talk about more in detail here.
So I get you now then, because this is on the SMO side, right? So inside of an SMO kept package, we will have this this CR is deployed. As I understand it, still we have this CR is deployed on the SMO side, on the nephew management cluster, running the SMO FOCOM. And you say that will then trigger an operator or something. Is it like basically triggering that operator to sending this same CR manifest down to O2IMS? And you imply, I think, that the O2IMS will just be a Kubernetes API then. So you do kubectl apply or corresponding, you send it on the Kubernetes API then over O2IMS.
Yeah, the only thing is, I won't suggest that the CR is applied in the management in the FOCOM cluster. What I'm suggesting is that FOCOM sends that CR through the Kubernetes API. So the workload, so the IMS receives it and apply it in its cluster, right? So that CR should only be applied from my standpoint, in that OCloud 1, for instance, cluster where the IMS resides. And then the IMS or Nefio, looking at that CR, will see, okay, I need to create a cluster using that package reference that was provided to me. Then Nefio can trigger, the Porch pipeline to do the hydration of that package, and subsequently, all the various KRM that will be dispatched through all the various controllers. So, yeah, I see, Alok, you have your hand as well.
I have a little bit of, sorry, Stefan.
Please, Alok.
So maybe if you go back to that manifest which you were showing previously. So if I follow you correctly, Alexis, we are sending the kind cluster CR over O2IMS. Is that the correct understanding?
No, we're not sending a kind cluster CR. We're gonna send a CR. So that claim you meant to say?
It's
the
the
first
kind
one.
the kind is cluster here. So
Oh yeah,
its
okay,
API
yes.
version is claim org. The
Okay.
kind is cluster.
So yes, I agree. So that's what we said. It
But
might
that,
not be the exact same fields as in there.
But I think
So
there
let's
is
not
a
talk about
challenge,
the
right? I
fields.
mean, this whole mechanism is based on the assumption that we have Nefio-based realization for both IMS and FOCOM, right? Otherwise, it doesn't fit for a multi-vendor scenario, considering you have some other, or let's say an example, you have SMO or FOCOM, NFO-based FOCOM, right, which sends this CR, and then down below we have some other vendor IMS, right? How does that work in that sort of a scenario?
Sorry, I'm failing to understand. The context is outside of Nefio. Is that the question?
yeah,
No,
it should be right. I mean,
it has to.
if I mean the O2IMS interface, whatever you send on the Kubernetes interface, then to the IMS should not have any Nefio flavor, right? So this claim Nefio org as an API version, that should never go over that O2IMS API, right? We need to have
Okay.
something more
Because-
agnostic, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because
So
yep.
so let me make one suggestion.
Yeah.
In the API version here, picture cluster template.oran.org.
Yeah.
Okay. And would that fit the bill? Because ultimately, I created that technical report, right, with the help of the working group 6 last year to try to get the provisioning API to standardize the CRD ultimately, right? So my intention is to have in the specification a CRD being written, okay? That's my intention in ORAN. So that CRD, right now, we're talking about how that CRD should look like. We're way further ahead than where ORAN is today. So of course, ORAN will never say claim that Nefio.org. Let's not get caught up on the name right now. Let's align more on the design. With the name, we'll figure it out, right? I mean, if it needs to be clarified, then the name could be claim that cluster or cluster template.oran.org. I'm not getting caught up on the name. Right now, I'm just trying to speak about conceptually how the design should work. I hope I'm clarifying a little bit where I'm coming from. I'm not saying it should be exactly as it is textually here. I'm saying in terms of design, the FOCOM will emit a CR through the O2 IMS. The CR will be a Kubernetes API that can be supplied either straight through a REST endpoint that Kubernetes will expose for .crd, or through the Kubernetes API directly as the kubectl apply. And that CR should have one of the field in it should be the template ref, as you have the last one. The other fields, I don't know. At least one of them must be the template ref, because then this is FOCOM telling IMS, this is the cluster template you need to deploy. And then all the details of that cluster template, it's actually the package revision. And all of that is contained in the package revision itself. So SMO doesn't care, and IMS should know how to implement, because initially, FOCOM got to know about these cluster templates because a specific IMS exposed them, or there's a catalog of them. We don't know yet how it's exposed, but that's, yeah. So I'll stop here.
So ultimately what you are suggesting or proposing here is like you will have a standardized custom resource, right? And the function or the significance of that custom resource is just a reference to a template, which is Nefio-based template, or could be some sort of a cloud provider template reference, and the actual definition will be within the IMS, the OCloud boundaries. Is that what you suggest?
Exactly, yes. And right now, we're discussing in ORAN, in the IMS sub-team, whether the template from FOCOM to SMO what it should contain. Of course, there is a template ref, but right now we're discussing whether that template should enable the overwrite or providing some values down to the IMS in addition to just the template itself. And that's a discussion up in the air in the IMS sub-team.
Yeah,
I heard it,
I'm
need
thinking
to-
because I'm participating in both, right? I mean, Alexa,
Yeah.
so I'm just thinking like, should we just test the waters in like, okay, take this as a proposal in the IMS provisioning, let's say, team in ORAN. What do you say?
Look, I'm happy to do that with you if you want to tag team but we need to make right now the ORAN group is discussing not on the format itself that we're looking at now, it's more discussing on the field, like the spec component here. This is where the discussion is at right now. So I think it's still a good discussion that ORAN is going through.
What I just wanted to validate with the ORAN group is, yeah, this is the concept, and we ultimately want to standardize a couple of custom resources which will have the reference to the artifact, as they call it, right? That's
Exactly.
For instance, location. I don't know where this came from now. But yeah, we need to like location here. I was thinking like here we should, for instance, have like an OCloud site ID as the target. Then I know that is also in discussion now in ORAN in the inventory work, right? That we should have like an OCloud site object introduced above the resource pool and resource objects. So
I agree. And that's where but if I
Mhm.
may, I just want to make sure we don't wait for ORAN to standardize everything. I think there is still opportunity for us in R3 to do something. Maybe it's not 100% aligned with what will be the standard in ORAN. As Alok said, I think we can bring some of the discussion here in the O2 IMS sub-team to try to steer the ship forward or get some feedback. But I wouldn't be in a, I mean, we can make progress faster than the specification, and we can adjust once the specification is there, right? So I just want to be mindful about that. Let's not solve everything right now. Let's try to get, I agree with you about the various location ID and so on, but we know the must field is the template ref, right? That package revision ref. We know that's a must have for now.
And there I also wanted to ask you this. Shall it really be the package revision? If we look at like the Porsche package variant or package variant set, they rather refer to like the revision agnostic package name, right? And isn't that rather what you should have here when you talk about what you're communicating over O2 IMS?
So that's a good question, and that's where I'd love to have more inputs from maybe a Wim. But the goal is typically the way it's the package revision typically is pointing to an upstream package, and then it will create a downstream package, and then the pipeline is executed between upstream and downstream, right? So I think we should reuse.
Yeah, sorry.
We should reuse the same methodology that we've been using elsewhere in FEO. I don't know if this is the exact API, the package revision, but yeah, that's where I would need maybe SIG too.
Some separate, like in compare with the package variant custom resource, because I think that
maybe it's the package variant.
Yeah.
You might be right, but
I would have thought it was the package variant because you've got some hydrate, whatever. The package variant, and then it's not the set though, because the set is already just what's going right.
That's fine. It's a package variant, and that would be on the IMS side. So basically, that is what we would need to like include it, or a reference then to corresponding that name.
Yeah, and so maybe it's package variant, not package revision.
We can come with a proposal ourselves on the input data, and then that can be something we then present or propose in ORAN.
Yeah, But at the same time, I want to make sure, like, you know, the OCloud ID. I'm going to bring back my comment from before, but the same way here, we're not providing a package variant ID. We're providing a package variant reference, right? So I would expect that we follow the same pattern to identify an OCloud site. Okay, the OCloud ID, I don't know how relevant it is because FOCOM anyway is going to target that specific OCloud during the request. So why do we care about carrying the OCloud ID itself? But the OCloud site, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, the OCloud site, I believe, is key because one OCloud can have multiple sites. And so when the IMS receives the request, it needs to know where to create that cluster in which OCloud site. Sometimes it's a one-to-one, but sometimes it's a one-to-many. And so there must be somewhere an OCloud site reference from that initial intent that FOCOM sends to IMS.
Yes.
So instead of location, I would have maybe OCloud site ref, such as the template ref or package variant ref. You know, and then and then
so
the
in this
details
case,
of
it's the location ref, right? It's really we're talking about the location. What you're talking
Then I just wonder if you take a look then at the. Okay, I base this on the current Nephew workload cluster template, where you have like the workload cluster YAML, and then you have the package variant for the cluster copy kind currently. So my thinking that as far as I was following the copy pattern, I was basically just like updating this one. Then you have another package for cluster copy to IMS. And in that one, OCloud, this is the one then. This is a cluster copy to IMS. So in that one, you basically use the injection from the workload cluster YAML to get this data then. So here you have all the input data. And that is then trickle down then to the actual cluster YAML file as far as I was using copy. The question here, and if you say you would like to basically send down a YAML file, then this claim YAML file, that one should still be generated based on the workload cluster YAML, right?
No, so the workload cluster here is the realization. So the package variant is containing some of these artifacts, right? But that package variant is owned by the IMS. The FOCOM doesn't need to know the detail of the package variant, right? FOCOM doesn't need to know how the cluster is created. FOCOM only cares that when that cluster is created, it's created with the appropriate, requirement. Now, what are these requirements? That's what we're discussing in the IMS sub-team, how they could be conveyed. But I don't see them necessarily as being conveyed through that mechanism. I don't think SMO or FOCOM needs to apply a package variant in its own cluster to produce that. It could, but my focus right now is more on the IMS cluster. So I haven't given much thoughts on how that would be realized in FOCOM. I'm more giving thoughts about, I'm expecting FOCOM to do whatever, but the outcome of that whatever is a CR, a cluster claim or cluster template CR that is sent to the IMS with these couple of fields we just discussed. How FOCOM got there, we can discuss it, but I haven't put some thoughts in there. But then how IMS take,
And from our side, and perhaps vice versa, then we have mainly looked on it from like a FOCOM point of view. Then how we saw that we should be implementing this in order to be able to generate the data then that will be sent down to the IMS.
Well, exactly, and so I think this is perfectly fine. It's what the only thing we need to align on is that how FOCOM generates. It's great that you're coming up with that recipe. What matters is that what FOCOM produces is that cluster template or claim. It shouldn't be the workload cluster because that's a CR used for different purposes in Nefio, but it should be that new CRD that we can call cluster template from day one. I mean, this is what ORAN is standardizing. Let's call it cluster template.
So that basically, it could be this one then here, down here. Instead of having the copy cluster YAML, we could have that claim, or if we now call it ORAN CRD then. And then we populate that one, and then we have just a very basic operator that just applies that one. When this one is finished, it just applied then down to the IMS.
Exactly, because SMO, again, I'm going to insist on that, but I think it's clear. SMO doesn't care that it's capping. SMO only cares that IMS needs to know what template to apply, how the template is applied, if it's using, how the template is realized, should I say, if it's using CAPI or some other mechanism. FOCOM doesn't need to care.
No, but just so you follow me, I agree to that. I mean, that was not my intention. It was like still decoupling, but the thinking was that even on the FOCOM side, I mean, when we discussed ourselves then how to implement this, logic in FOCOM, we thought that, okay, let's leverage on copy. We make a new provider plugin here, and that copy operator is then sending the request down to AutoIMS. So still with your proposal, even if the AutoIMS interface would look like that, it basically takes this eventual or final ORAN YAML file and applies it down to the ORAN Kubernetes API or IMS Kubernetes. It would then, in this solution, it would be that copy provider plugin that makes that task. So you go then via a copy a manifest file applied in the management cluster on the SMO side, and then you have the copy provider plugin then that generates this YAML file and applies it on AutoIMS.
Yeah, that works. That works perfectly. Exactly. So the how the FOCOM gets to produce this CR.
Yes.
I think that how is what you said is absolutely a valid how, and I don't have any objection to it.
Fine. Then that is good. Then we could actually be in sync there, I think, because we were a bit thinking about, okay, what shall be that generator? Shall we leverage on something we have, or shall we start implement something new that is a bit AutoIMS specific?
No. If you have something already and that it's able to output a CR such as the claim that Nefio here, but that would be something we agreed on. I think this is perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Then I think it fits the intention, and if we demonstrate that both, the way FOCOM generate that CR is using KPT, package variant and KPT pipeline to generate that CR on the FOCOM cluster. And then on the IMS cluster, we take that CR, and likewise, we use ports in KPT pipeline to hydrate and create the actual cluster with it. I think that's what we should do in R3, and I think that would be pretty cool to demonstrate.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So Stefan, with that, would you be able to go back to this use case and update it with those decisions? Do you have enough information for that?
I think so. But then we still have those details a little around, like, okay, what shall this one contain and so on, right? The information going over the AutoIMS interface. But I think I can update with what we know so far.
What we know today, right? And then next Wednesday we'll come back and we'll get the details, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Yeah, and I think, and I would recommend that, and I'm happy to work with you, Stefan, that for that CRD, we start with the must-have parameters, such as a location ref and a template ref. Let's bring as minimal amount of fields to start with, because as ORAN aligns, so then to Alok's point, we bring that to ORAN IMS sub team as this is a basis that we're looking at for implementation in Nefio. And if they say, yeah, these two fields are must-have, then at least we can proceed. And then if ORAN eventually come up with, okay, these are another set of fields that we need, then we can add them. It's easier to add than to remove, right? So that's what I'm suggesting to start that way.
So shall we schedule like a separate meeting? Alexis, Alok, anyone else that would like to go, just to perhaps drill down on that, like having to identify those critical properties. We can do that.
We can, or we can, and we can also iterate offline. So if you want to have a first pass at it, we can. For me, it's easier to iterate offline because the amount of meetings that is already there. But if we need to, then yeah, we can find some time to meet live.
I will come up with some proposal the way I know follow you here, and then we try to drill this down a bit more in detail, and then I will ping you or notify everyone when we have something there that we can.
Thanks.
But then I will keep updating this user story document, or where do we document?
No, that's fine. Go ahead and update the user story document because you're in the design artifacts at this point, right? So that's where you have this information. So just use it there. And then when you're ready, just notify it on the Slack channel, right? The ORAN Slack channel that you've done that, right?
And we need to make sure SIG2 is included because I don't think they're here today, but they must have a say in the design, right?
I'll get it over to the SIG2. Just when I see
Thanks,
it.
Tim.
Thanks.
Okay, guys.
Okay, gents,
so,
Tim, yeah, I'm sorry, gents. Tim, I got to drop to get ready, and I have 5 minutes, so
I know.
So thank you.
Okay, no worries. So, guys, all right. So we got 5 minutes. So what we'll do next week is we'll continue on finalizing this user story for the Crate cluster. So, Stefan, I think that's just the onus on you. Then hopefully, once we're done with Crate again, we'll have to go back and hit delete and ORAN cloud registration. So we'll still have to add those in. But I think we really have to get through this one because it drives the other two. Okay. Any other comments for today? All right. All right, guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Stefan, by the way. I appreciate all the work that you're putting into this. And I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.